Hey guys, this is going to be a difficult video for us to make. I think when I first started my channel, which has only been a couple of months ago, I did say that at some point we would probably sit down and make this video. I think it's an important topic to talk about. So many people experience this and never share it with anybody. Some women don't even tell their own mothers when they have a miscarriage. We are putting this out here for our first day of Vlogmas. If you're new to our channel, that seems like a really sad thing to put out there for the first day of Vlogmas, and doesn't seem to go with that happy festive theme at all. But I thought about it, and I'm sure that there are a bunch of people out there now during this season that are also dealing with the same thing that we dealt with 4 years ago. So you're not alone. You're not alone. It does get easier to deal with, but the pain of it, of that loss, doesn't ever leave you. It hasn't left me, at least.
Like Sue said, this is a very difficult video to make, and at a lot of points in time I'm sure we'll come up at a loss for words. I guess the easiest thing to do is just kind of go through the events. 4 years ago, Suzanne and I had just gotten married, and whereas we knew we were looking forward to starting a family, we'd started to try, and I think at one point it actually decided that maybe we would wait for things to settle in a little more.
We tried for a couple of months to get pregnant. We got married that June, and we said, okay, we're gonna wait until September and then start trying to get pregnant. And September came, and I said, well, we'll really try really hard in September, and we'll try like every day and see what happens. And then we were like, okay, maybe we'll wait. And then lo and behold, we got pregnant in October. And oh my goodness, I felt like I knew right away that I was pregnant. You know, I just had that feeling, like I could feel that we had conceived, and took pregnancy test after pregnancy test to make sure. But when I took that first one, and I was like, there's no way, you know, I'd never been pregnant in my life. I had never wanted to be pregnant in my life before that. But I saw the faint line, and I remember calling you in to look at the test with me. We were there taking it together. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember it. Just, I think one of the hardest parts for me, more than for you, because it's very difficult to talk about. For me, it's almost like a very surreal thing that happened, because I know it happened, and just give me a second. It's not like it was yesterday, but it's one of those things where it's so...
Well, I just remember when I took the test that I felt like I was going to break for a second. Like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. There's like a baby growing inside of me. And I couldn't believe it. Like then we took like digital tests to confirm. I was like, yes, you're pregnant. And I was so excited. We called my parents right away. I couldn't even wait to try to tell them in any kind of cute way. I think I like called them and was like jumping up and down in the bedroom. That's when we lived in a different house. Than it's before we bought our house.
This is before I started my career. I was still finishing up school. Much different situation, but I mean, we were just over the moon. I mean, it's, you know, like I said, we were trying, and then just decided to let things take their course, and then it happened. You know, it's one of those things. It's like they say, as soon as you stop trying, it actually works, and it did. I knew I wanted children, and I knew I wanted the way for it to happen, but I didn't know that much about the process at the time. So I started to bother Suze. When did we go to the doctor? And you find out a boy or a girl, all this other stuff. Kind of a lot of stuff that a first-time dad gets really excited about, but doesn't know anything about anything yet.
I started researching doctors immediately, and the doctor that I picked out, she was awesome, and she had like all of these great reviews, and everybody loved her, and she was actually voted like the best OBGYN in the area for such and such, and I thoroughly researched it to death. I started buying all of these baby books and pregnancy books immediately. I bought a baby journal I wanted to record every single moment in memory of the pregnancy. A special little planner and calendar. A little book to read to the baby in utero. Just all of the like really cute stuff that you do, and everything just felt so happy. I have never felt that feeling in my life of just like pure, unadulterated like happiness. You know, I was taking my prenatals and doing everything I was supposed to do, and I was in good health. And the doctor said when I called to make the appointment, you know, she's like, well, we won't make your appointment until you're 8 weeks along. But until then, you know, look for this and this, and everything's fine. And so, you know, I was taking really good care of myself. I was on cloud 9. We were going into the holiday season, and, you know, I had morning sickness a little bit, but not too terribly bad. I remember, like, I felt a little sick, like at Thanksgiving and stuff. We went home to see my folks, and I was a little sick. That's when I started throwing up a little bit, but nothing, like, major. Just excited, everything's great. And then we moved into December, and I just remember like baking and planning, and I was like baking stuff every day, and like Susie Homemaker. Like, I just remember being so happy, like nothing could destroy that. I was like, oh my gosh, I waited all these years to have children, and then we decided to get pregnant, and then it happened so immediately. It's like meant to be. And we had already come up with baby names, and just naive, I guess. Just really naive. So 8 weeks came, and we went to the doctor's office and, you know, filled out everything. It was kind of weird. They were almost like a little assembly line doctor's office, even though they were like voted, you know, she was voted the best doctor. So the level of like patient care was already kind of like not really there with the nurses, and I'd never really experienced that in my life, but you know, whatever. I was happy. No one could mess with that. We went in to have our ultrasound, and the ultrasound tech, they went ahead and did an internal ultrasound, because at that time you should be able to do that. And I could tell right away, I mean, excuse me, external, an ultrasound, not a sonogram. And I could tell right away from the sonographer's body language that something wasn't right. Something was wrong. And she's like, let me just check something with the doctor, and she's like trying to smile and act like everything's okay, but I could just sense it. And then the ultrasound tech came back, and she's like, you know what, we're just gonna do the sonogram, like, so we can get even better pictures that way. It's just a little too early. I knew it might be, you know, she was trying to make us feel better about the situation, but nobody was giving us like information. And I could see like the embryo, I mean, I could see with the baby, you know, you could see on the screen like there's something there, but I've never had this experience before. I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was really a situation where, you know, it doesn't matter what you've heard or what you've been through or what you've read. I don't think you really, until you're sitting there. And Suzanne I could tell she was uneasy, but I wasn't sure what to expect. So in a lot of ways, I really didn't understand, you know, what the coded conversation that was happening.
The doctor came in, well, they did the sonogram, and then I could tell from that things weren't right, and they printed all these pictures and stuff, and you know, they never gave me the pictures.
Yeah.
And like that, out of all of it, is something that like, I don't know, that I wish, like, you know, and some people might watch this and be like, oh, your baby wasn't even that far along, or, but they were like, you know, maybe you're wrong, maybe your period, your dates are off, and this is off, and like, the baby is not the size the baby should be, the embryo, like, it's not the size that it should be, like, your stuff's off. And I'm like, no, my stuff's not off. My period has always been like clockwork my whole life, like every 28 days. Now I think I'm on 30 days and some crazy stuff going on because of breastfeeding and stuff. But before that, it had always been like every 4 weeks, every 28 days, like clockwork. Like I knew, like, okay, every Tuesday, this is my period. It's going to happen on this day of the week. And I've always kept track of it. Like I knew. And I'm like, no. And she said, like, well, you know, you could have ovulated differently. Like our figures could be off. we would expect to see a heartbeat right now, but sometimes it's too early at this point to see the heartbeat. Like, this is here, this is there. Let's give it a couple of weeks and have you come back and see what's going on. But like the way she's like trying to talk to me, I think I was kind of like, something's wrong, like this isn't gonna happen. Am I losing this baby? Like, what's wrong? And she's like, you know, there's no way to, you know, it could just be this. Like, let's give it this many days and come back.
I remember you got done with the ultrasound and we went out in the hall and you told me, you said, something's not right. And I was like, no, because I have a tendency to just try to reassure no matter what the situation is, and just like, no, everything's fine.
And like, I had to read people for a living.
Yeah, so I, of course, am over there just giving her this lip service that she doesn't want to hear, something's not right. And then when we went in and talked to the doctor, the two of you had a conversation that I just did not understand. I did not understand what you guys were talking about. It didn't make sense to me.
We were talking about like hormone levels. They took my blood.
The doctor had said that maybe it was just too early for us to be there.
Or maybe I was gonna lose the baby.
When this was said, I didn't understand it. I asked the doctor if there was something you could take for pain, because you'd been in a lot of pain up until that point.
And I like snapped at you, I think.
Yeah, because I just didn't get it.
The doctor and I were just like communicating at that point, almost like just, instead of just doctor and patient, almost just like two women that just like an unspoken thing. And we left and we walked to the car and explained to him.
I think I was in disbelief.
And the doctor said, just pray.
Yeah, we had asked what could be done, and that was one of the things she had said. And Suzanne was trying to explain to me, and I just didn't get it. And she was just like, look, like
the doctors told us to pray, like it's bad.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna lose the baby. We went home and we basically did that in every form and fashion that I could. And all of my family did, and his family, just positive thoughts, positive energy. And they set an appointment for me for 2 weeks from then, for Christmas Eve, ironically. And they said, we'll see what happens. We'll just like play it by ear and see what happens. And so my family, they, you know, have a lot of these Christmas traditions, and we used to have these parties on Christmas Eve at my grandparents' house when I was little. And one of my aunts decided that she would throw a big get together, like a barbecue and oyster roast. And Ellie actually had to work, but I was like, I can go by myself, it'll be okay. It was just like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And I drove there and I saw my family. My mom had kind of like told everybody kind of, you know, what was going on, just so people wouldn't like gush about the pregnancy. And everybody's, you know, trying not to make a big deal out of it, but like prayers and positive energy and, you know, positive thoughts. It was a nice night. And then I came back home and I hadn't like overly exerted myself or anything. Those are all the things that go through your mind after the fact. And went to bed that night and I was feeling more positive, you know, trying to. But on the drive home, like I do remember feeling like something was off, like something wasn't right. I felt like I was feeling like a little cramping or feeling more nauseated than normal. And early the next morning, that Sunday, it was the 22nd, I went to use the bathroom and there was just a tiniest faint like pink. I mean, like so faint that it looked almost like, I mean, like the faintest pink, like almost white, with just like a tiniest tint of possible pink, you know? But it like scared me, it worried me really bad. So I like got in bed and took it easy and like rested all day. And there was nothing else all day, but it still didn't feel right. And then we went to sleep that night.
Sleep that night, just kind of hoping that that was something small that I was gonna pass.
Because there was nothing else, like, all day.
So then early on the morning of the 23rd is when she actually started to miscarry. She was in a lot of pain. I could tell that things were not okay. And
all of that becomes just a blur of like sadness and pain. But I remember that like episodic memory, it being dark in the bedroom and me waking up from sleep and feeling that I was losing the baby, the pregnancy. And I remember sitting up and telling him, this is it, we're losing the baby. And started crying, and I think you were in disbelief, or like maybe he thought, he was still like hoping that that wasn't the case. And I'm like, no, we're losing the baby. And I jumped up and went to the bathroom and was in like the most pain I'd ever been in, and then started passing so much stuff that like really graphic and in so much pain. And I ended up having to get in the tub, and I don't remember if I went to the bed between then, but I had to get in the tub. And I just remember like my uterus was just steadily contracted the whole time, and just so much tissue, and just, it was horrible. Just huge amounts of, and it was so bad, like he had to like be there with me and like basically help like pull all of this stuff from me. And we had to save the tissue and stuff so that if we wanted to get like genetic testing and stuff to see like what went wrong, or this is all happening and I'm just pouring blood, like so much blood. And I'm sorry, this is so graphic, but it was horrible, and I was in so much pain, and there was so much blood, and it was so uncomfortable, but I knew that that's what was happening. And I was like, I'm not gonna go to the hospital. I don't want to have a D&C. And for some reason, like I wanted to experience that. I wanted to naturally experience that. I felt like I needed to feel that. And but we were on the phone with the doctors and communicating with doctors and nurses like while that was happening, and told them like, we have an appointment scheduled for tomorrow morning at like 8 in the morning anyway on Christmas Eve. So can I just stay at home and just do this naturally? And we really shouldn't have done it that way. I probably was like close to hemorrhaging, like I was hemorrhaging, but thankfully we made it through that. And when we went in the next day though, it was like really hard because I was bleeding so much that, and they knew what was going on, but like they just like got me sitting out there like in a waiting room in a chair, just about to like bleed all into the chair. And that coldness that I had felt before that I just overlooked because I was on my cloud of happiness was definitely back. And my husband's trying to explain to them, like,
yeah, as far as that part of the whole story is, it's just that sometimes people say like, a healthcare provider is just someone that you go to, but I swear, like, I've never had an experience where, people were so just
so cold and insensitive. And not the doctor,
and it's
the nurses, which I had never experienced in my life. Like, nurses are great. Like, I had worked in the healthcare field, like, but I was astonished and appalled, and just like, they're just like, oh.
We come in and I tell them who she is and why she's there, and then they just say, okay, sit and wait. And I just kind of give them a look like, wife's having a miscarriage right now, so you really just want me to wait in the lobby?
On Christmas. On freaking Christmas.
And they brought us back and they checked her weight and stuff, and then they put us like in a corner
and like forgot about us.
You know, where there was some chairs and just left us there. And after, you know, it's one thing if you go to the doctor.
It was over an hour, and we're sitting there, and all this Christmas music is playing on the speakers, which is a reason, like, I have never been a big Christmas music fan, but now more than ever. And like this Joni Mitchell song is playing, The River. The lyrics are like, I made my baby cry, and we're just losing it. And like Silent Night,
it was the worst. I mean,
it was the worst thing ever. And then I'm just bawling. And then the woman, when she finally comes, you know, what made them finally come is a doctor. You know, they say doctors are the ones that aren't. I mean, nurses are supposed to be the like patient advocates. They're the ones that are like hands-on, that are really providing the direct care. And in this situation, it was like nurses that were way past their retirement that shouldn't have been doing the job anymore, really. A doctor saw us at the end, and I mean, we were like at the end of this hall, like in these two little seats, like a separate waiting area, for over an hour. Like they had just forgotten about us. And she came down there, and then I actually heard her just like going off on one of them, like in another. And so then the nurse that came was like upset because the doctor had just basically told her she needed to do a better job and to be more attentive, and like, why had she just left patients out here and forgot about them? And so then the nurse came and was like, is it you? I said, what's wrong? You know, and he's like, we're having a miscarriage, like this is, and she's like, oh.
We don't go to that doctor.
And I did let the doctors know, and you know, they wanted to do a D&C, and I opted to take the medications, and then, you know, and then you have to get the prescriptions filled, and the pills that they give you. Oh, you got it, Brexley? She was like, got her wobana by both hands trying to like get it. So the pills that they give you are also the same pills that they give you to have like a chemical abortion. So then there's almost like that judgment look, because I guess most people have the D&C. That like judgment of like, is this an abortion pill? And it was horrible. The whole experience was horrible. Then I thought that was the most painful stuff, but then all the medications that you take make your uterus do all of that again, and your cervix open all the way up to let everything out. Like one dilates you and one makes your uterus contract. That was like full-blown labor after the fact. We didn't get any sleep. It was like almost 3 days with zero sleep. I think they had just put Wonder Years on Netflix, and we watched reruns of that to distract ourselves. And now I can't even. It's one of my favorite shows. I can't.
Yeah, we had to be awake. You had to be awake, just so if you like passed out or blacked out or fell over or fainted or whatever, that we could take you to the hospital if you had lost too much blood. So we started just searching around, and Wonder Years was a show that was on, and I don't think I ever watched that again. It was one of the shows you watch your whole life growing up, and then you watch it in that moment. Now it's always connected to it.
And the reason that I felt like we should talk about this now at the beginning of this festive season, I'm sorry to bring everybody down if you're watching this. The title is very clear, but our whole house was decorated for the first year, like extra decorated from top to bottom for Christmas. So we came home from the doctor's office, and all of the Christmas music to like Christmas trees and decorations on Christmas Eve. And I spent all of Christmas Eve and all of Christmas Day just writhing in pain from those medications.
One of the hardest things, and excuse me, I don't know how well I'm gonna speak, but I'm sure that there are people out there right now who are watching this video that are looking for some kind of connection and some kind of solace or anything that they can grab if they're going through something in the same time frame that we went through what we went through. And there aren't words, and there are gonna be so many people who are gonna try to offer you something, that are gonna try to say
that's God's will, it's your body's way, it's nature, it happens, it's so common.
I'm here to tell you right now that there's squat that you're gonna hear that's gonna make you feel any better. And I'm saying that because right now, as I think of something that would have mattered to us, it was nothing more that could be said or done or anything.
But it would have been great to have like validation, empathy, compassion. But we didn't get that. We did from the doctors. The doctors were wonderful. And unfortunately, you know, the nurse, I'm sure she wasn't happy she had to be working on, you know, Christmas Eve and not have enough empathy to be able to look at the situation and try to reframe it in all of these angles as to why that was the treatment that we got, but that didn't help. And I really thought that Christmas would be ruined forever, that I would never celebrate Christmas again. I got home and just wanted the tree down immediately, and
it might have very well been ruined if things didn't turn out the way that they eventually did.
And I know a lot of people probably are out here too thinking like, oh, you're only 10 to 11 weeks pregnant. Like,
I mean, that doesn't matter. I wasn't pregnant. It was my child, but it wasn't my body. But I, to this day, like, I couldn't even watch Up earlier for the split second that they're showing a montage, and you know, it just the reference to the idea that this happened just,
yeah, you know, it wasn't just the end of a pregnancy, it was the end of a dream, and it was the end of like that naive feeling that everything was fine and like nothing bad could happen. So even when we got pregnant with Blair the next year, on the exact same day that we conceived that pregnancy, the due date of the two pregnancies was the same. The whole pregnancy, I never felt that level of happiness and joy. I was so thankful to be pregnant and so happy to be pregnant. But I just kept waiting on the other shoe to drop. And when she was born, I kept waiting on the other shoe to drop. And then I got pregnant with Brexley, and the whole pregnancy with Brexley, who we also conceived around that same time. Her due date was a week off from the other two pregnancies. I also was waiting on that other shoe to drop. I never again felt that just pure bliss, and I just always imagined like what that must be like. You know, how awesome that must be to go through your pregnancies and have that feeling of just happiness that like nothing bad has happened to you yet. You know, it just changes your whole outlook afterwards. And then trying to get pregnant again, you know. So with that said, this is a really sad video to put out there, and I am putting this out here on the first day of Vlogmas, and I'm sorry for that if it brings anybody down. Again, the title's really clear, so hopefully if you didn't want to see a video like this, then you didn't click on it. It's a really sensitive topic, but we felt we wanted to put it out there and share it, and to let you know like another lens that we look at this season through. So when you see us like celebrating and being happy, and you know, just know that that is our experience, and it's always there in the back of everything.
You know, you have life experiences, and these are things that are, everyone's got something, and everybody's, no one's just made it through life and everything's been great. So you gotta, you don't have to, but we're sharing this portion because I think more so than, you know, you'll see our other vlog stuff, and I'm sure it'll be, you know, just more lighthearted and fun and that kind of thing. But this is the reality of life. I mean, this is the other stuff that, you know, sometimes you just wish stuff was a little more real. And this is our reality. This is what our first experience with pregnancy was like. And two things I'll say is, one is we did have a friend, and when he found out, he said, listen, I love you guys. If you need anything, let me know. And that was it. And I hope if you're going through this experience that maybe you can find that person too, because those are the kind of friends that are great to have by. And another thing I'll say is that after we went through this, not long after, I had a friend go through it, and he said to me, I just wish I knew it could be like this. And I tried to tell him, I said, there's no way you could have ever prepared, and there's nothing anybody could have ever said that would have made it better. And that's the reality, is that where we sit now in this day, the only thing that time has done is kind of not heal the wound, but just kind of conceal it with other good memories. So as tough as this is, and as devastated as we were, you just gotta move through.
And it helped that Blair was due the exact same day as the other baby, so it felt almost like Blair came, like it was Blair, and she just like, oh no, I'm not ready, and then came back. I don't know.
Just took a year off.
That's just how I had to try to look at it. But you know, Ellie did have a vasectomy after Brexley, and that's something we might talk about in another video. But that was like a hard decision too. But just with my health and stuff, and our ages and stuff, we just didn't feel like we should try to have another child. But I was like, my family doesn't feel complete. I know that I don't need to have another baby, but I just don't feel complete. And the truth is, I probably won't ever feel complete, because I will always feel like I'm missing that one child that, you know, as much as anybody would say, oh, that was early in your pregnancy, I had a whole life imagined and planned, you know.
Anybody who says that doesn't want to understand or doesn't understand, just, I'm sorry, like, it's the reality. And if you've got somebody saying that to you, cut that person out your life. You don't need them.
Anyway, if you have watched this, thank you for sharing this life experience with us. I hope we didn't bring you down too much, but sometimes you just need to be real.
Thanks, guys.